بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. In this video I want to address what exactly does the true Sayyid haplogroup require. So why is J-L859 the most likely haplogroup to be of the true Sadat, and what factors do other haplogroups require in order to perhaps make an argument against it? So I believe the three most important things a haplogroup must have are: first, the time period. It shouldn't be in the 1500s or 1600s. It should match Banu Hashim, which was between 500 and 600 AD, at least the beginning of it. The genealogical structure is also very important. Many lines went extinct historically, and perhaps many other lines have gone extinct, but we have not realized that. And finally, the claims. It should not just all be random people. Everyone on the haplogroup should have some sort of legitimate claim to Sadat. Whether it be true or not, that's another question. So it's best we first analyze the genealogical structure of the Banu Hashim, at least in the early years. So Hashim only had descendants through his one son Abdullah. His son Asad only had one daughter who married Abu Talib alayhi salam. And Abdul Muttalib only had four sons who continued his progeny: Abu Lahab la'natullahi alayh, Abbas, Harith, and Abu Talib alayhi salam. So Abbas's lineage carried through his one son Abdullah, and the others have multiple different lines descending from them. And Abu Talib alayhi salam had three sons continuing his progeny: Aqil, Jafari, and Imam Ali alayhi salam. And Imam Ali alayhi salam had five sons continuing his progeny: Imam Hasan, Imam Hussein, Abbas, Muhammad, and Umar al-Atraf. And that's Muhammad al-Hanafiya. So Hashim lived most probably around 464, and he died around 497. So the haplogroup of Hashim himself should be around that time, and same for Abdul Muttalib. So J-L859 has a TMRCA of approximately 500 AD, which matches pretty much exactly around the time of Abdul Muttalib alayhi salam. So that's one of the main factors required. The structure, we will refer back to it in some time. It's very important, as of course the haplogroup must follow the structure exactly, and J-L859 is really the only haplogroup which has such a structure. No other haplogroup has a time period matching Hashim, and no other haplogroup has a structure as detailed as this one. And before we move on to what Dr. Hadi al-Amali has found in his research, we should address the Quraysh. So the Quraysh tribe, which is the forefathers of the Banu Hashim, seems to simply not exist at all. Over many years of genetic research, there are no haplogroups which the Arabs have found that all the Quraysh match each other above the Banu Hashim. J-L859 carries this flaw that above J-L859 there is simply nothing indicating the Quraysh above it for a few thousand years, I believe. So is it necessary for the Quraysh to exist in the first place? And the answer to that is no. There is nothing in the Islamic teachings that promote the Quraysh necessarily having to be a biological tribe. Of course, before Islam there were many incorrect practices being done, and adoption will have been common. Simply people being attributed to fathers who are not truly theirs. So that's a great reason why we don't find any Quraysh tribe in the genetic phylogeny. And second, it's possible many of the Quraysh has simply gone extinct. There's a huge bottleneck between J-L859 and its father haplogroup, FGC 8712. So this could be seen as a major flaw. But We hope in the future maybe something will be found to indicate the existence of some sort of Quraysh tribe, but it's possible it simply did not exist at all, and that is not necessarily a huge flaw. It just shows the nature of the truth of the Arab tribes. So, since no other haplogroup has any really strong claim to have a Quraysh phylogeny nor a Banu Hashim phylogeny, it's only logical that J-L859, which has a phylogeny matching the genetic structure and time period of the Banu Hashim, is the true mutation belonging to Hashim. But we should analyze each of those shortly. So, currently, under J-L859 is a structure nearly identical to what I have proposed in the tree above. So L859 may belong to Hashim or Abdul Muttalib, and there are currently 3 SNPs underneath it, and we are currently still missing one SNP which should belong to either Harith or Abu Lahab. So the first SNP we should analyze is JZ6406. So this is identified by Dr. Hadi al-Amani to most likely be the mutation of Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, his son Abdullah. So below the haplogroup are many people actually claiming descent from different backgrounds, so not necessarily Abbas himself, but after further analysis we will find that Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib is the most likely man for this haplogroup to belong to. But it should be made clear that everyone descending, or nearly everyone descending from J-L859, has a claim to Sadat ancestry. They have family trees and traditions, but they don't always fall within the structure that they should be, or the claims are different than as proposed. The second SNP is ZS5448. So Dr. Hadi al-Amali has noted this as either belonging to the descendants of Abu Lahab or Harith ibn Abdul Muttalib. So that is another error so far, that there is no mutation belonging to one of these sons just yet, but it is possible, and we hope in the future that we will find a distinct mutation for Abu Lahab and a distinct mutation for Harith. Of course, I don't think anyone will want to claim a descent from Abu Lahab, so that would be a great factor in all those descending on this mutation not claiming any descent from Abu Lahab or even Harith, because these men were not as prominent. People prefer to descend from more famous men like Abbas or Abu Talib. So there we come to FGC 8703. This mutation has been labeled to Abu Talib, and it is very clearly belonging to Abu Talib. Every single man descending from this mutation, except 2, which we will address later, claim a descent from Abu Talib from one of his sons. So, of course, the most prominent of Abu Talib alayhi salam's sons was Ali alayhi salam, and his mutation has been identified as FGC 10500. So this mutation is nearly complete consensus to be Alawi. There is nothing contradicting it whatsoever. All the descendants of this mutation, except 2, which we will address later, claim a descent from Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, and below it there should be 5 mutations representing each of his sons, as shown in the pedigree above. So currently 4 have been identified, and we still await the finding of a 5th mutation, A31773, which is a T2T mutation discovered by Dr. Hadi himself, belongs to Imam Hasan alayhi salam, and essentially everyone belonging to this mutation claims a descent from Imam Hasan alayhi salam, and the structure below it matches near exactly their own genealogies. The next SNP is FGC 30416, which belongs to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We find the same, that everyone belonging to this mutation has a descent claimed from Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And then we have FGC 38790, which has been labeled to belong to Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam. So on this mutation, not everyone actually claims descent from Abbas alayhi salam, but some do, and it has been labeled as his mutation. And finally, the ZS2095 mutation. And this mutation is more of a prediction, as not a single man under this mutation actually claims descent from Umar al-Atraf ibn Imam Ali alayhi salam. So obviously more people would want to claim descent from Imam Hasan or Imam Hussein. So yes, it's currently only predicted that this is belonging to Umar ibn Ali alayhi salam, and there are multiple reasons for this which we will address soon. And finally, we should have a mutation for Muhammad al-Hanafiya, but it has not yet been discovered, and Dr. Hadi has addressed these reasons in one of his posts, which we will analyze later. And finally, of course, Imam Ali alayhi salam has two brothers who also carried a progeny up to this day, Jafari al-tayyari and Aqil alayhi salam. So the FGC 67360 SNP has been identified, and their descendants do actually have claims to descend from Jafar al-Tayyar alayhi salam. And finally, there is currently no named SNP for Aqil ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, but there is currently one man belonging to no SNP underneath FGC 8703, so he is presumed to belong to the line of Aqil ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. So next we shall address each of these SNPs and any flaws that may belong to them, and yes, inshallah, we will gain much more knowledge in this topic. If we take a look at this discover tree of J-L859, we can clearly see first the 500 CE MRCA, which is exactly the time of Hashim and Abdul Muttalib alayhi salam. And we can also see one of the major flaws of L859, which is the bottleneck between it and FGC 8712, which originated around 1200 BCE. And from here we can continue to analyze the structure of the J-L859 phylogeny through its three mutations. Both the Abbasi and supposed Abu Lahabi or Harithi mutations, they're quite small in number and not many people belong to it. There's not much evidence overall. So we will skip those and go straight to the mutation belonging to Abu Talib alayhi salam. So as we can see, there is a TMRCA of 550 CE, which is exactly the time of Abu Talib alayhi salam. And we see that there are still only two descendant lineages. The lineage of Aqil alayhi salam has not been identified yet. Another one of the what seems like a major flaw of L859 is when we go to the mutation which belongs to Imam Ali alayhi salam. The TMRCA is exactly the year of birth of Imam Ali alayhi salam, 600 CE, but we find that there are 8 descendant lineages, when Imam Ali alayhi salam only had 5. So how can this be addressed? So although it seems like 8 lineages at first glance, if we look at JCTS 8308, the al-Tayyari mutation, FGC 8702, the Hassani Musawi mutation, BY 37594, the Dawoodi Hassani mutation, and FTA 29187, which is another Hassani mutation, they actually all fall under one T2T mutation named A31773, which was discovered by Dr. Hadi al-Amali. So those 4 mutations are actually only one descendant lineage from FGC 10500. And if we remove those, we find that there are only 4 named lineages belonging to FGC 10500 and one unnamed lineage, which Dr. Hadi says should be the lineage of Muhammad al-Hanafiya. So if we continue from here at CTS 8308, it has a TMRCA of 700 CE. And if we look at the scientific details, we find that there are 3 mutations belonging to it. So not just one man, so not the son of Imam Ali, but his one of his descendants a few more generations down, which has been identified to be Ibrahim Tabatawa. So there are approximately 5 mutations in total between FGC 10500 and CTS 8308, the 3 HD 38 SNPs shown previously, and the 2 T2T SNPs, A31773 of Imam Hassan alayhi salam and A31774 belonging to Hassan al-Mu'thanna alayhi salam. So all of the descendants of this specific haplogroup claim descent and have family trees going directly to Ibrahim Tabatawa. So it's only logical that this mutation belongs to Ibrahim Tabatawa. They descend from different sons, so it is clear that this is a mutation of the Tabatabai Hassani Sadat. On Dr. Hadi's blog, we can find a list of all the different families belonging to this mutation, which we can take a look at now. On this page, we can see a chart made by Dr. Hadi al-Amini. He has made many of these charts for each haplogroup underneath L859 in order to identify all the families and the SNPs belonging to them. So this chart belongs to the Tabatabai Sadat, and we can see clearly the different splits and branches belonging to it and each family. So the major descendants, the Rassi family and the Raisi families, are spread across Yemen, Iraq and Saudi. We can see each of their families which have been tested, and Dr. Hadi collects all this information and he puts them into visually appealing trees like this one, which are easily read in order to identify the mutations and see where each family has landed upon the Tabatabai mutation. And it is essentially indisputable that this mutation is the Hassani Tabatabais, since everyone belonging to it matches at the correct time period. There's the correct structure of the Rasis and the Raisis, and all of the members who have tested and received this mutation have a claim to descend from Ibrahim Tabataba. We shall now take a look at the FGC 8702 mutation, which belongs to another Hassani line. Of course, above it are the A31773 SNPs and the A31774 belonging to Imam Hassan and Hassan al-Muthanna. And this mutation, or haplogroup we shall say, has 2 mutations below it. And it is predicted that 3 men belong to it, which we can see in this chart made by Dr. Hadi. That Abdullah al-Muhad, the son of Hassan al-Muthanna, Musa al-Jawn, the son of Abdullah al-Muhad, and Abdullah al-Salih, the son of Musa al-Jawn, are the 3 men represented by these 2 mutations. Usually we find that there's 1 mutation per generation, but not in all cases, and it's also possible there's a T2T mutation representing the 3rd man among these. So belonging to this haplogroup FGC 8702 are the famous Sherifs of Mecca and the Jordanian royal Hashemite family. So this is essentially the most prominent mutation, and there are more than 100 testers belonging to it at current moment. This is essentially what identified this whole mutation as the Banu Hashim, because of the prominent Sherifs of Mecca and the Hashemite Jordanians. The TMRCA matches that of Musa al-Jawn and perhaps Abdullah al-Salih, and below it we can see the genealogy of the Sherifs of Qutadah. Again, everyone who belongs to this mutation has a family claim or lineage linking directly to Imam Hassan and Musa al-Jawn ibn Abdullah al-Muhad, so it clearly strengthens the claim, making this the haplogroup of Abdullah al-Salih and his father Musa al-Jawn. And we can see below there are 10 families descending from this haplogroup. And we can next look at BY37594, which belongs to the Dawoodi Hassanis, and this is the haplogroup of Dr. Hadi al-Amili himself. Dawood ibn Hassan al-Muthanna belongs to this mutation, and we can see that there are 4 mutations under this haplogroup. So about 4, maybe a few more generations are represented by this haplogroup. This is clearly more prominent in Lebanon, especially Jabal al-Amal, and again, everyone belonging to this haplogroup has the claim of descending from the Dawoodi Hassanis, and clearly strengthens the claim of this FGC 10500 being a clear contender for Imam Ali alayhi salam. But the descendants of Imam Ali alayhi salam will never be complete with only the Hassani Sadat. We should now explore the Husseini mutation of FGC 30416. This mutation has 2 belonging to it, one for Imam al-Hussein and one for Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam. And of course it will not be split. If these mutations are split and separated, that means that this cannot be Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, because all of his descendants came from Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. And if there are descendants belonging to one of the mutations and not the other, it means that they descend from Imam Hussein and not Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. So that hopefully will not happen, and it should not be possible. We see below this that there are 12 descendant lineages, but of course this does not mean 12 sons of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. This rather means 12 different families belonging to this mutation, and there are T2T mutations between it, representing men like Hussein al-Asghar and Umar, the sons of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. And there's of course Zayd al-Shahid, FGC 54257, and the supposed Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam mutation, which we will take a look at next. Everyone descending from JFGC 30416 claims a descent from Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, of course. Who would not want to claim such a blessed lineage, which we have seen that in other branches of L859 people have claimed other Hashimi lineages, which seemed more preferable and gave a higher social class at the time. So of course we see the TMRCA matches essentially exactly that of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, and we should now observe the FGC 54257 mutation, the grandson of Imam al-Hussein, Zayd al-Shahid. So here we find a small discrepancy, that despite there being only one mutation, and Dr. Hadi has discovered another T2T mutation, the TMRCA is a little bit off from the time of Zayd al-Shahid. Perhaps it's a calculation error, of course. The science is not perfect, but it's also probably due to just simply the number of people belonging to this haplogroup and the irregular number of mutations each person has. And this mutation is actually found commonly in Hindustan, in Pakistan and India. So if we begin with FGC 86267, this is found more in Arabia, and here we find a discrepancy in people's claims. People descending from this haplogroup 86267, many of them actually claim Musawi descent from Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salam. But why has this mutation been identified as the Zaydi mutation? Well, first we find the structure matches exactly that of the sons of Zayd al-Shahid. Of course it says there are 6 descendant lineages, but the descendants of Zayd al-Shahid continue through 3 of his sons, Muhammad, Isa and Hussein. There has been a mutation identified to belong to Hussein, and there are 2 other mutations which we await to find. We have discovered the mutation of Isa Mu'taman al-Ashbal, and the Muhammad ibn Zayd line is quite rare, and inshallah we will find that in the future. On this chart made by Dr. Hadi, we can see the structure clearly of FGC 54257, and we can first identify the Hussein Dil Dam'a SNP, which is YFS 4252908, and here the SNP belonging to Isa Mu'tam al-Ashbal, which is FT 420798. And finally there's one family, al-Atawi, who likely descend from Muhammad ibn Zayd, but only they descend, so we have not discovered the SNP of Muhammad. This line here, S782, is common in Arabia, and a lot of these men claim Musawi lineages, but we find that one of the most prominent Zaydi families to live in Arabia, the Al-Zayyud in Madinatul Munawwara, they descend from this SNP. So the lineage of the Zayyud is stronger than the Musawi of Lebanon and Iraq, because they had not migrated, which keeps their family lineage more secure, and of course their prominence in being Zaydi Sadat has been one of the main factors in identifying this as the Zaydi mutation. But they're not the only Zaydis to descend from this. The Ali Barraq and the Ali Dabhawi over here and the A'raji all descend from Zayd Shahid by their claims and label this as the Zaydi mutation, despite the great number of Musawis. And in Pakistan, many families have found themselves belonging to this mutation. The Zaydi al-Wasti families from Muzaffarnagar, Bihar and Rajasthan, and the Karari Rizvi family from Karari near Allahabad. So, of course, we have found a Rizvi family belonging to the lineage of Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, and that, of course, seems to link to the Musawi claims, but we find that they match very closely with the Zaydis of Sadat Ibara in Muzaffarnagar and in overall Zaydi Sadat of Bihar and Rajasthan. And we have also found that the Tirmidhi Zaydis from Bijnor are also matching with Sadat Ibara, which shows some discrepancies in the family trees, but in the end they do claim a Zaydi lineage. And I have forgot to mention the Rizvi family of Kerman, who migrated to India. Again, not a claim for Zaydi lineage, but it has identified to match closely with the Al-Zayyud, strengthening them being of a Zaydi lineage. And there's also the Al-Saqqaf family, which claim a Jafari Ba'alawi lineage from Abdurrahman al-Saqqaf, but they match closely with the lineage of the Tirmidhi Zaydis. So overall, this branch, FGC 54257, contains people with a variety of claims, but it has been labeled Zaydi due to the following reasons: the Al-Zayyud, the Dabhawi, A'raji families, and of course the overall structure. There are three lineages: Al-Hussein, Isa and Muhammad, which does not match the structure of the lineage of Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam and Musa al-Qadhim, but it does clearly match the lineage of Zayd al-Shahid. Now, as for the other lines belonging to the lineage of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, but not from Zayd al-Shahid, are the many other sons, few other sons of Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam, the most prominent being Hussein al-Asghar, and there's also Umar, and many families belong to the FGC 30416 mutation and do not carry the Zaydi mutation. So in this chart we can identify al-Hussein al-Asghar's mutation. It is a T2T, although weak mutation, but it has been found in all descendants of al-Hussein al-Asghar, and many prominent families have been found to descend from it, mostly in Iraq: the Ali al-Tulqani, Ali al-Adraqaji, Ali Rada, Ali Mahdi. Ali Rada is from Pakistan and claim a Rizvi descent, so that's the major anomaly, but the others all claim some sort of Husseini descent, so it suggests this belongs to Hussein al-Asghar. There's the other families from Bebahan and Khorasan and other Hashimi families, all famous and belonging to this mutation. As for other Husseini Sadat, there are those belonging to the lineage of Umar, like these families, al-Jammaz, and many others. So this chart just displays some of the Husseini families, and who are not Zaydi, and who are not Jafari, who we will discuss next. But before we discuss that, I'd like to discuss first one of the families that does not claim anything Sadat, and what exactly is T2T. So first, we can see here Güemes. That's clearly not an Arabic name. Güemes Reynoso is a man in Spain who received the Husseini mutation. So this arises the question. He is essentially one of two men on this J-L859 who do not claim Sadat, but it is clear that he does truly belong to Sadat from the Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Obviously the Arab conquest of Spain is well known, and he must descend from that. His full Big Y has not been completed, so we do not know exactly where he falls on the tree, but it is clear that he should not be used as an argument to denounce L859, as the Arab conquest of Spain is well known, and is clearly matching all these prominent Sayyid families. As you can see, al-Bahani, al-Jalabi, and the others, all prominent in Iraq, some in Lebanon as well. Lebanon have many Sadat of many lineages and are essentially present on all mutations. Now, as for T2T, I've mentioned it a few times as providing mutations for Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, and in other points in the Y tree where there have been discrepancies. So T2T is essentially a new scientific genome of the human. The previous reference was called HG38, and the new one is called T2T. So here is a T2T tree. T2T, which stands for telomere to telomere, essentially gives the extra 1% of the missing genome and gives us access to that when analyzing our files. And although it is not true T2T, which we have, it's more of a simulated version, but it allows us to discover mutations which we previously were not able to due to limits in computing. So with these new genetic discoveries, the tree of the Banu Hashim on J-L859 has been improved, such as these mutations discovered here. And if necessary, we can discuss all of them in a separate video, but it makes clearer things such as the Imam Hasan mutation, which brought down the number of descendancy lines of Imam Ali on FGC 10500 from 8 back to 5. So now it is best we should analyze the lineage of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, and among it is many flaws actually. Underneath FGC 30416 is the JBY49997 mutation, which has been labeled to Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, or his father, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam. So, as we previously saw with FGC 54257, there are a Ja'fari family, some Rizvis, and some Musawis also, but that was not labeled as the Ja'fari mutation. Rather, this is it is very small. Only a few people belong to it in Kuwait, Iraq, Lebanon, and so far none in the South Asian subcontinent. So what we first find, of course, as a flaw is the lack of people belonging to this mutation, despite there being, I'm sure, thousands of claiming descendants of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, Imam Musa al-Kazim, Imam Ali al-Rida, and Imam Muhammad Taqi and Hadi alayhi salam. So, although we find this has been labeled as Ja'fari, as first the authentic families in Iraq and Lebanon, which belong to lineage of both Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salam and Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, but it is mostly unclear so far. There is no structure, no Rawis have been found, no Naqawis or Taqawis, So that is one of the major flaws, especially in South Asia and Iran, where many people claim Radawi descent. There is simply no one belonging to this mutation, which is essentially the second major flaw with L859. The first one being the bottleneck, and there being no Quraysh, and the second being the lack of Jafari Sadat. Also belonging to this Jafari mutation is Mr. Leo Green, a man from Alaska in the United States. So this is quite absurd, but despite having no Sadat claim or any Arab ancestry at all, he does belong to this mutation after completing his whole genome sequencing test. So this is most likely a link to perhaps the Güemes family in Spain. There is a island nearby Alaska named Güemes Island, who has connections with the Arab conquest of Spain, so it's most likely he descends from descendants of Imam Ja'far alayhi salam, who migrated to Spain and later to the United States. Next, we should analyze the proposed Umar al-Atraf mutation, JZS2095, of which many people from Pakistan and India also belong to this mutation. This haplogroup has 3 mutations, or 3 men representing it, and not a single man belonging to this haplogroup claims descent from Umar ibn Ali alayhi salam. So how have we, or Dr. Hadi and we, come to the conclusion of this being Umar? So first of all, obviously the Hassani mutation has been identified, the Abbasi and Husseini mutations have been identified, and all that remains is Muhammad al-Hanafiya and Umar al-Atraf. So there are not very many recorded descendants of Muhammad al-Hanafiya in India, so to have so many Pakistanis and Indians belonging to this mutation, it does not seem right, considering how historically there are so little descendants of Muhammad al-Hanafiya. There was, however, one famous king named Ja'far al-Malik Multani, and his genealogy is very well known to have descended from Umar al-Atraf, and in Multan he had many descendants, and he lived around the 1100 CE. So this 1100 CE is very prominent, as we can see that all the Pakistanis and Indians belonging to this mutation match at exactly 1100 CE, which is why Dr. Hadi has proposed that this haplogroup belongs to Ja'far al-Malik Multani, and above it to Umar al-Atraf. This, of course, is due to the time period and the historical situation, as of course, if all these people are Husseini as claimed, there is a Naqvi, Huzvi, and Kazmi Sadat belonging to this branch, and Abidi. If they are all Husseini, that means all the other Husseinis in Iraq, in Lebanon, would all be false Husseinis, and they would have to be Umari, which is illogical. So it is most logical that these claimed Husseinis are true descendants of Ja'far al-Malik Multani and descendants of Umar al-Atraf, matching with an Iraqi man a few generations below Umar. Next we shall analyze the FGC 38790 mutation, which has been labeled to Abbas alayhi salam. Belonging to it is only the one mutation, and the TMRCA matches Abbas alayhi salam very closely. It's quite a small haplogroup so far, not many people have received this mutation, but those in Yemen and Saudi and Iraq as well have claimed descent from Abbas alayhi salam himself. Although not all of them do claim this descent, most of them do, which has attributed this haplogroup to Abbas alayhi salam himself. And there's also one man from Singapore. This mutation, they have migrated from Iraq to India and then to Singapore. So this does not skew any claims. It is simply the process of migration shown in real time. So overall, this is the Abbasi mutation, and most of the people belonging to it descend from Abbas alayhi salam through their traditions and claims. Now, after discussing all the mutations under FGC 10500 which are prominent we can go back to see the Jafar al-Tayyar mutation labeled as FGC 67360. So this is also a very small lineage, but quite a few claiming descendants of Jafar al-Tayyar have been found belonging to this, and of course the TMRCA matches very nicely. There's only the one SNP belonging to this, again suggesting only one man descends from here, that being Jafar al-Tayyar, and it essentially completes the tree of the talibis, but of course there is still the missing al-Khili mutation. Another aspect which is important to discuss is how exactly are TMRCAs calculated. So with family tree DNA and essentially all other calculation methods such as that used by Weifel, the number of mutations between two people is used to calculate how far apart they are and what time their ancestor would have lived in. So both SNPs and STRs are used in calculating a range of when an ancestor would have lived. So the mean of the range for L859 is about 500 CE, but there is of course a range which could be between 232 and 727. So of course if there are only two testers, the mean may not be as accurate as it should be, but with L859, when there are more than 600 men belonging to this haplogroup, the accuracy of the TMRCA is essentially near 100%. So the way the TMRCA is done is very important, and with the number of testers increasing the accuracy and the TMRCA staying at 500 CE is a huge strength in the L859 being the true Sadat haplogroup. But also, it is always possible that just simply one sample changes everything. We have seen that happen with Albert Perry and the Y chromosomal Adam time, which was put at 300,000 years ago, but previously it was 150,000 years ago. So one sample can change everything, which is why, of course, this is still ongoing research and we cannot say everything with complete and absolute certainty. But at current day, this 500 CE TMRCA for L859 and its other descendant haplogroups, they are extremely accurate. And as for the Y chromosomal Adam and the Prophet Adam alayhi salam, that's a completely different discussion, but perhaps in the future it can be addressed as well. Next we shall analyze this chart made by Dr. Hadi. Clearly shows why there is a lack of descendants of Muhammad Hanafiya, and overall gives a good overview as to how many descendants we should be expecting of each branch of Sadat. So here marks the number of Sayyid men and women who lived in the year 227 Hijri. So here we can see that there are only 45 men belonging to the lineage of Muhammad al-Hanafiya, while other branches like Hassanis and Husseinis had 300 and 400 men, and even the atrafi and Abbasi lines had much more men, while the Hanafi line had simply 45 men. And these statistics give a good show of what we should expect, and it matches quite closely to what the genetic structure and statistics are showing so far, with the number of people we've tested and the number of results we've received on each branch. So that is it for analyzing J-L859 essentially. There is not a huge amount of detail gone into this video. It's just a brief overview just to show how everything fits together, how it should fit together, and there is no other haplogroup with any other argument to make, as nothing is as clear as the structure of J-L859 and of course the matching time periods. And I think finally it's best to analyze what have we found among South Asian Sadat, since not many of them truly belong to this mutation. So is it true that just all the family trees of South Asian Sadat are completely false? So we shall take a look at that now. Among South Asian Sadat, our project have found a variety of haplogroups. Of course, among some J-L859, but for the majority, quite a large variety of haplogroups have been identified, from L to E, and other branches of J1, J2, and R1A are very common. But what we have found is that those in the same location or share a mulis a'la, they tend to share the same haplogroup. So South Asian family trees are very well kept, and they are true at least up to the mulis a'la. And we have found this within many families, such as the Karari Rizvis, the Amrohvi Naqvis over here, the Galdezi Naqvis, the Dokovi Naqvis. They all have very strong family trees, at least up to the mulis a'la in the 1200s to 1400 CE. These Sadat, essentially none of them belong to a haplogroup where there are huge clusters of Sadat matching each other at the 600 CE time period. Only J-L859 has that, which is why it has such a strength on being the true Sayyid haplogroup. But of course, this is only research. The research is ongoing, and we don't have complete certainty in what we are saying. Everything is a prediction. We will never truly know the truth, since that will require the knowledge of an infallible, the Imam Mahdi, ajalallahu ta'ala farruhu, wa sahlallahu wa dahurak. So that's all for this video. I hope it gave a good introduction to J-L859 and why no one else has really been able to argue against it, and refuting anything people might say against it, as well as acknowledging its flaws. So thank you. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.